film schools and drama schools have a lot of drama. That's kind of our thing. Do you like it? I'm just gonna move, make sure you can all see my model for the set that I'm designing at the moment. I just want to make sure you all know that that's there. I have a little stick man who's also to scale that lives in here. Hi guys, and welcome back to my channel, or hello to those of you who are new. My name is Emma, I'm a complete grad and film student. So, in an effort to still not be a book channel, I asked you guys over on my Instagram, would you like a film school Q&A? Because we haven't done a Q&A in quite a while. I seem to do these every 6 months and I generally theme them. So, film school. I have been at film school now for, because of coronavirus, over a year. This course is meant to be 2 years and then however long it takes you to finish your grad film. I'm currently about halfway through my degree. We have 6 taught terms and then however long it takes you to finish your grad film. So you basically have to almost, I guess in a way, qualify to finish your grad film, and you graduate as something. You graduate as a director, as a producer, as an editor, a DOP, etc. Production design. Don't ask me what I'm graduating as yet because I don't know. We're essentially now doing like the big boy terms. Like we are building sets, we're in the studio, we're doing all of that. It's very real. It's very real is all I can say. It's a big learning step between each term, but it is so fun. I'm sure people have been asking the questions, but for context again, I'm doing a filmmaking MA. I don't know why it's not an MFA actually, Master of Fine Arts instead of Master of Arts. I'm kind of like, I wish it was an MFA, but here we are. So I'm at London Film School, and the reason I'm at this film school particularly is because it doesn't make you specialise. There are a lot of other film schools in the UK, but they make you choose your lane, so to speak. You can do a master's in directing, you can do one in cinematography, you can do one in editing. I didn't want to do that. That's one of the reasons I never even looked at NFTS, for example, because I didn't want to have to choose a lane. With YouTube, I've always had to do everything, so I had a good grasp on how you do the whole process. And really, it's like it's same but different. This is a micro version of what you do in film. A teeny weeny version, teeny weeny, but it's the same principle. It's always the same workflow and the same process. But that's a bit of context to get us started. You had good questions, you had interesting questions. I pride myself on having a fucking great bunch of you guys. You guys are amazing. You always ask really good stuff, so let's do this. Honestly, if 15-year-old me could see me now, she'd be so gassed. Like, she would be so gassed. Right. Do you have to have filmmaking experience to get on the course? The answer is kind of. It's an MA, so they won't take people who haven't done an undergrad or have like relevant industry experience. If you're someone who's left school and gone straight into industry, then you'll have enough to be able to come to like film school and do that. But a lot of people haven't necessarily made a film before. You don't need to have been on a big set, you don't need to have done any of that kind of stuff. Really, most of us haven't. It's still a school, they're still training you up. But a lot of people, because they just always liked making films, and that's kind of it's the passion that drives you, right? A lot of us have already made short films and then a bunch of those kind of things because we liked doing it. It's like you do that, know you're good at it, know you like it, and that's then why you go to film school. If you like want to go to film school and you've never done anything creative, whose idea was that then? Most people who were there have always loved doing this, or something creative or something artistic, so then this made like a really it was a logical next step. You don't necessarily, but you do need like some kind of creative something, right? Even if that's like you've done loads of music and stuff, that means you're great with sound, so that's great and that's relevant. If you've done photography, great, you have a good eye for framing and lighting, like that's still relevant. Filmmaking is quite interesting that you don't necessarily need specifically filmmaking experience, because there's so much that you can like bring from like other creative fields. It's kind of like, I kind of like to think of film sometimes as like a melting pot for a lot of other creative things. You know, you need people who are good at music, good at sound. You need people who have an eye for design, for colour, for costume. There's a lot of people in my course actually from an engineering background. They generally tend to be the people who are in camera. You need people who've got a lot of experience with a lot of different things from a lot of different places. Treat film as an industry as like a melting pot of all of those things. So in terms of having relevant experience, that's a super broad term. You can kind of interpret it as you like. Do I miss essays? Hell no. Hell no. No, absolutely not. Do you know how glorious it is to be doing a degree and then you're like, shit, we do have essays that we have to write, but like it's one essay, it's one 8,000 word essay at the end of every 2 terms, which is wonderful. And I routinely forget about it, so I need to stop forgetting about it and actually like, I'll treat you to an essay write with me, because I haven't done that in a very long time and I need to not forget about it again this term. We don't get graded on 0 to 100 the way most bachelors do, what you're probably used to. We get graded with pass fail distinction. That's kind of reassuring. I'm not like kicking myself that I didn't get like, you know, that I got maybe a 60, a 69 and not a 70. I'm not like kicking myself over a mark anymore. I'm more like, I passed, it's sick, okay, let's keep going. Is doing your degree online slowly killing you? So with coronavirus, obviously a lot of our teaching went online, as with everyone, but the thing is, this is a practical degree, so I think I've been very lucky that there are some things that they just cannot teach us online. They're just absolutely, can you be taught how to lace up a camera? Like, because we have worked on film and stuff, like you can't teach someone how to lace up a camera online. You can't teach people how to like hold a boom and all of that kind of stuff. You can't do that online, you have to do it in person. So we've always had like a decent balance, and like that has been very nice, just for even from like a mental health perspective, for example, because some of my friends who've been doing like law degrees and masters, like they basically never got to go in, but luckily with film you just can't teach that way. So we were some of the earliest people who actually got to go back into school. They just completely postponed our terms and cancelled a term last year instead of making us do all of it online, because it's just not feasible. But in terms of doing things online slowly killing me, all of our meetings are still online. The other day we had a meeting, and my side of the meeting was about 3-4 hours. We had another one which was 5 hours. Let me tell you, a 5-hour meeting on Zoom with your unit, especially when a lot of it, because I'm designing, it's a design consultation, as you can see I'm an incredible designer. It's a lot, and it's very, very draining, and it can be very frustrating when you're showing someone a model and you're trying to communicate over Zoom about where you want a wall to go and the angle of a shot, and it's the value of being able to point at something and clarify it in person cannot be overstated. And I never thought I'd sit here and say that. It's doable, but it's rough and it is exhausting. And like, we had my design consultation, then after that we had a cinematography one. I started falling asleep, I'll admit that. Because it wasn't like my department anymore, it's still obviously important, but when it's not directed at you, it's very easy to just be like, it's exhausting. So like, forgive yourself for the times that you've fallen asleep on Zoom, because have any of us not done that at this point? I'm not even gonna ask as being like, oh, who has done that? I'm like, who hasn't? It's so exhausting. For what though? It's oh, yeah, that's slowly killing me. But I think because of the nature of the degree, we're very lucky in that sense that not that much has been pushed online. What is the goal afterwards? I always find these questions, I get asked this a lot. I always find this question kind of funny, because I'm like, I'm doing an industry degree. It's like asking someone who's doing a law degree, like, oh, what do you want to do afterwards? It's like, well, I want to do the thing. With film as well, because it helps when you're good at other stuff. Because like, everybody wants to write and direct. Everybody wants to write and direct. There aren't that many projects going, so it helps that you're good at other stuff. So yeah, the goal is obviously always going to be write and direct. But I'm a banging producer. I'm a great first AD, and like, I really enjoy those things. So, famous last words, but you know, that's kind of where I sort of see my career heading. Which is interesting, because for a long time it was edit. And I think I love editing for YouTube. It's fun, I enjoy it, it's funky. I don't think I enjoy the idea of, as a career, sitting in a dark room pretty much by myself for hours and hours on end, which has been one of my biggest like, oh shit moments. Like, my first couple of terms of film school were like a huge identity crisis in that sense. I was like, oh shit! Pretty sure most people went through that, because you're because you can do everything, so you're kind of confronted with whether you're actually a good director, whether you're actually a good writer, because to an extent we've never done it in this capacity, so it's kind of you thinking, oh, I think I'd be good at this, but then it's like, okay, well, let's see now. Once you start being on a set, like a proper set with people, it's so fun. It's fucking addictive. It's so fun. Oh my god, there are so many questions, fuck. How do you shoot on film? With great difficulty. It's one of the things they make us do in our first, so your first 2 terms at my school, they make you shoot on 16mm. When you're running, because we were using art on cameras, very big chunky cameras, they did a lot of them like They shot a lot of like new wave stuff on it. They're very old. I'm so impressed they still work. But you know, when film is running through a camera like that, it's meant to make a certain noise, like kind of like a soft purring noise. The horror of when it starts making this like scratchy noise is terrifying. Like you can just, when you hear people, when people like clock it, you can just everyone's butthole just clenches. That's just what it is. You're just like, fuck. But such a great learning experience. We were supposed to be able to shoot 35mm for our term now, and we haven't been able to, which is, they have the cameras, which is amazing, so everyone after us is gonna get to, which is really fun. So that fucking sucks ass that we can't. And we were like, can we then have it for our next term? And they were like, maybe, but no. So that sucks. So anyone who now goes will be able to do that, which is fucking sick, but kind of sucks that we didn't get to do it. But shooting on film is terrifying. It's amazing and it's beautiful, but it's scary. This is a good question. Will we ever be able to see your film school films? Realistically, probably not. The person who asked this is actually a friend of mine, so like I can send you them, like I can show you them, but that's still like private. The problem is if I put them anywhere for you guys to see, that becomes public, and school has a policy. I don't agree with it. Of not making things with the intention of sharing them with the wider world. It's kind of a whole like, it's a safe space for you to fuck up mentality, because otherwise you, and I do understand this, otherwise it puts so much pressure on you, because you're like, oh, I want to send this to festivals. I'm like, no, your film school film isn't going to go to a festival. Like, calm. We'll see, but assume no. What has been the biggest surprise about studying film for you, positive or negative? Well, one of the things I'm kind of pleased about is that they don't really make you study film per se. It's not making you watch movies and then like write essays on them. In the earlier terms, they do make you watch films and then you have a discussion about it. Harder to do on Zoom and stuff. But I'm really happy that we don't need to like sit down and write an essay on the new wave, because I don't want to. For those of you who don't know, my degree, my undergrad initially was comparative literature with film studies. I axed film studies for my degree because I thought it was terribly taught. I thought it was the most pretentious thing I'd ever heard. And it's like film, it's just so apparent that these people have no idea how filmmaking works, especially when you talk about authorship. I had to have arguments with people about films, and these people had like no other students, they had no idea. Authorship in film is bullshit. It's bullshit, because there are so many people involved. It's not like you sit down and write a novel and you have complete control. You're not God on a film set. You're a dictator, sure. I mean, Coppola said the last truly dictatorial job is film director. That's, yeah, but you have no idea who made which decision, so you can't assume it was director. Like, I think authorship is complete BS, and I had to argue people about it, and they just don't know how filmmaking works, and it's so frustrating. And that's even before I even started this degree. Editing Emma here. Vindicated. Vindicated was the word that I wanted. Fucking vindicated. Genuinely. Film school basically confirmed most of the theories that I had, but couldn't like put into practice in any way. So I'm like, this is basically validated and vindicated a lot of the opinions that I had pre-film school about filmmaking on this like larger scale. So vindicated, and fuck everyone I had to argue this with, because it's so irritating. Fools. Anyway, I don't like doing film studies. I like making films. I like watching films and making films. I do not like film studies. God. No. So about studying film is that I don't like doing it. Filmmaking, excellent. That's a lot of fun. And you get the most pretentious shit sometimes. It's actually shocking. I mean, don't get me wrong, we know I can be pretentious, but like for me to be like, that's pretentious, then you know it's bad. Then you know it's bad. How expensive is film school in the UK? Here in the States, in the rest of Europe, it's expensive. I'm not gonna say how much it is. If you wanna know, you're absolutely welcome to Google it, but it is expensive. I'm not gonna bullshit you. It is an expensive thing to do, which means you get some interesting characters sometimes, but that's the thing with film. You're always gonna get people who have more money than sense. You're always gonna get people who are a bit more entitled than others. If you wanna go into film and TV, I just encourage you to get to grips with how you deal with people who are assholes. And that's about as much as I'm going to say on that. I'm not going to bullshit you, film is a very expensive thing to do. That's one of the reasons that I'm happy that I'm going to film school, because like I'm getting to like use all this really expensive equipment that you never in your life would be able to like buy. And most people don't buy cameras, by the way, people rent them. It's such an expensive thing to do, and that is often why you get certain kinds of people in this industry who can afford to be there. It is not a very inclusive industry in that sense, or really at all. Google an Arri Alexa. You'll get the gist of what I'm talking about. It's just an expensive thing to do. And yeah, you can make something decent with a phone though. I was once looking at like a festival thing, and there was a category of micro budgets. The micro budget was £10,000. And now, where I'm at, like you start off and you're like, oh, 10 grand is so much money, and then you're like, no, for a film, that's nothing. It's not very much at all. There's a reason film budgets on like big films are millions and millions and millions, hundreds of millions of pounds. There's a reason for that. It is such an expensive thing to do. And also, most of it goes on most of it is food and transportation and like hotels and stuff. That is what most of your money goes on, and it just disappears very quickly. If you've ever produced anything or done any budgets, it disappears immediately. Mind you, it's an expensive thing to do, even when you're not paying your cast or your crew. At our film school, we are not allowed to pay our actors until we do our grad films. It's an agreement we have with Equity, I think they're called, which is the actors union. Even when you're not paying your crew, you're not paying your actors, it is a very expensive thing to do. We're all getting an invite to your first premiere, right? I saw a good one. Where is it gone? Where is it gone? What equipment and resources do you recommend, specifically for a future applicant? I would recommend a camera. I'd be surprised if no one didn't have some camera or another. Most of us, it's just obviously, again, it's our passion, it's what we love, so we have a lot. I'm currently looking at four different cameras, so it's just like what I like. I think I have about 15 cameras. You just need like something. Your phone realistically will do, but in terms of anything you really should get, the only thing I can think of is Final Draft. Get Final Draft. For those of you who don't know, Final Draft is an industry standard script writing software. You can format it yourself if you want to, whatever, like that's fine. It can be done, but I've done it, so I can tell you it's a pain in the arse. It's not that expensive. It's still expensive, most software is, but it's not that expensive. Yeah, you can format it yourself, but it's a pain in the butt, so. Also, it's really just smart software, and I really like it. You don't really need any editing software. I know that if you're gonna get anything, get maybe the Premiere Pro, like Adobe student package thing that you can get. It's not that expensive either. It's all expensive, but it's not that expensive, relatively speaking. What exactly do you do at film school? Is it just planning, filming all the time? Pretty much, yeah. Every term is pretty much like a 12-week production cycle. You're in pre, you're in production, then you're in post. Yeah, it's a school, but treat it almost more as a production house. Each term, we get access to more fun kit, better quality kit, more complicated kit. So it kind of builds up. So they start you off on like black and white mute film, then you do color. It's still, you don't record anything live, but then you have to do ADR, so which is additional dialogue recording. You do Foley, you basically have to source all of your sounds from elsewhere and then you put them on film. That's just part of the exercise. Third term is, it's digital, it's documentary. So again, that's pretty basic lighting kit and stuff. Term 4 is black and white studio term. Term 5 is a color studio term. And then term 6 is prep for your grad film. So it's basically like they start teaching you a lot of the like skills in the first couple of weeks that you'll need is to do the things then for the production that you get like access to. So with like our term 4, for example, we're now using a dolly. So then you get taught earlier in the term, or even at the end of the last term, how you would use that kind of kit. So you get trained up in how you use the kit, you get trained up in like a lot of the theory stuff, a lot of the heavy theory stuff with cameras and all that kind of stuff is more towards the beginning of the course. And then by this point in the course, we're not going to teach you it because you should know it by now. So that's kind of how it works. And a lot of it waterfalls. So like your preparation for your 4th term will have started in your 3rd term, but production sort of bleeds into each other. And the more pre-production time you can get, the better. So this year our courses got shoved together because of coronavirus. Our course was meant to start in January this year. It started in March, which meant that usually we had a month between terms, and now we had 2 weeks, which also means your pre-production time has done this. Little bit stressful, but we move. And also then you pitch. So at the end of each term, you pitch for the forthcoming term. In this term, our 4th term of studio shoots, there are 6 or 8 productions happening. We pitch for those, at the end of our last term. I actually didn't pitch because the script that I have I really love and I'm really happy with it and I think it can do well, but that the more I wrote it, the more I was like, this is not a black and white thing, this is a colour thing. So that's kind of, that's me. So for this term we had to turn in a proposal and a script. The term before that, however, we had actually done live pitching. So we've done both, but generally you would, in industry normally you would just do a proposal. You'd very rarely, it does happen obviously and it's an important skill to have, but you wouldn't necessarily pitch live very often, but you would do more of a proposal and stuff. I do actually think it's very well structured and I am happy with it a lot in that sense. Like it builds it slowly and a lot of it you kind of get reminded each time. They do little refreshers almost, so it does become reflexive and it does become something you're like, oh, of course I know how to do this. When the first time you encountered it, you were like, what the fuck? What are your thoughts on the avant-garde experimental cinema? What's the most useful thing about film school? One of my favourite things that Scorsese said about going to film school was that you go to film school to get your hands on the equipment. And the other thing, your peers, you can crew up. I can crew up an entire film with the people I know. You know people who can screenwrite, you know people who can script supervise, you know people who can AD, you know people who can use costume, you know people who can make it, you know people who can second AC, first AC, camera. You can crew up a whole production. And that is one of the great things about my film school is that, like, yeah, we have to do so much and so much of everything that you can definitely find someone. Okay, somebody may be a better DOP than they are an editor, but they can still edit if you need them to. That's one of the really, really good things is, yeah, hands on the kit and all the people you know. And maybe you'll learn something along the way too, but this was my main motivation. I even put that in my application. You can, by the way, you can read my application. I put all of the ones that I've done for all of my degree applications ever. It's on my website. I'll link that down for you below if you're curious. My film school one is obviously a successful film school application. Is it everything you hoped it would be? I've had a lot of questions along those lines. Yeah, and better, and worse. But that's just like the nature of these things. When you go into it very green, you're just like, well, I'll pretty much accept anything you throw at me because I don't know any better. It's exactly what I wanted, and more, and worse in some cases. I guess there's just a lot more politics than I thought there would be. But in hindsight, I think that was kind of naive because this kind of industry is always gonna have politics. Most industries have politics, like that's a given, but this industry has a lot of politics. If any of you have been to drama schools and stuff, like I've spoken to a lot of actors about it, film schools and drama schools have a lot of drama. That's kind of our thing. There is so often, and I cannot overstate this, there is so often more drama happening behind the camera than in front of it. So often. It is a bit of a wild ride sometimes, but yeah, I think I underestimated that. Mainly because I think my undergrad was relatively drama-free, so now it's like, holy shit! That's, I'm not gonna say anymore. Has your perspective on films changed? If so, how? To an extent, ruined watching movies for me because I now often sit there going like, oh wow, I love the way they did this, or I love the way they did that. So it can sometimes be a bit distracting because I don't necessarily get fully into the story because I'm wondering about how they got permission to shoot on that road, or how did they get so many extras, or that must have been so expensive to get a permit for that. So it's kind of like, but a really good movie shouldn't do that to you. I was watching Cruella with a friend and all I was thinking was like, yeah, Disney money, because you're looking at it like, you know how expensive all that shit is. I guess a bit of the smoke and mirrors is gone. And a bit of that sparkle is gone. And to an extent it probably won't come back. You know how you do it, and you know how expensive it is, and you know how difficult it is. So you're kind of there like, I can't believe they got the rights to use this song, instead of just enjoying the fucking song and the soundtrack. So a little bit of the luster is gone, but worth it. I was watching one of Spielberg's first, one of the first things he directed. It's a like truck movie, what is it called? And yeah, I was just watching the whole thing going like, how did they get permission to shut that road? Did they do that with VFX? How did they do that? How did they drive that off the end of it? How did you get permission to, yeah, that. How do you cope with the fear of lagging behind your peers in terms of career opportunities? Not gonna lie, this kind of spiraled me just a teeny weeniest bit. You just have to look for opportunities. They're not necessarily gonna just fall into your lap. You have to go for things, say yes to things, and if anything, do it even though you know it's gonna be a shit show. There are a lot of badly run projects, badly organised things, and sometimes you need to be on a bad set, on a bad project, with bad people, to appreciate when you're on a good one and know what it's like to be on a good set, which you really can only do when you've been on a bad one. You just have to say yes to things and create opportunities and look for opportunities rather than just letting it happen. Just don't be passive, you just have to create it. Often that's fucking terrifying, you know, to like write a script and then be like to your friends like, because if you do, you guys can make it and you guys can get more experience and do stuff. Don't be passive and create those opportunities. The thing is, when you start something like film school, you don't all start from the same place. You'll get taught the same stuff, but you know, some people just have different experiences and backgrounds than you already do. The general spread that I've noticed with most cohorts, so we have like, each term is called a cohort, is that you have a couple people who come straight off their bachelor's degrees, and they're usually the youngest of a bunch. There's a couple of these, then you'll have the main chunk of people who are in their mid-20s. These people have usually had like a bit of experience in industry or something slightly similar. These people who've been like, yeah, you know, I'm gonna go to film school. Then you have people here who are more like early 30s, mid-30s and stuff. These people who've generally had careers, and it might be that they've completely decided to change their career, or that they've been sort of maybe stuck in one side of filmmaking and they're like, no, I want to now do a different side of filmmaking. Maybe they've had a career in production and they're like, you know, fuck it, I want to direct. Maybe they've been editing and they're like, you know, fuck it, I want to do OP. So people who've maybe been in industry for a while and are like, want to do a different trajectory now. That's a very generalized statement, by the way, but this is sort of how it generally splits up. And also just remember, these people don't necessarily know what they're doing more than these people do, and vice versa. So it's really what you make of the opportunity. You'll see people who have great careers in industry still choose to go to film school, especially the film school that I'm at, because they make you do everything. If you were to write a book, what kind of book would you write? I swear to God, if you ever catch me writing a book, just... What is camera? I mean, I have no idea, don't ask me. Do schools provide all your equipment for you, or do you have to shell out loads of cash for cameras? It completely depends on the film school that you are at. With the film school that I'm at, we have no like surprise costs for any of our productions, shall we say. All of our kit we get via school, that doesn't cost anything, and then we get given a budget, and like that budget already comes out of the fees we're paying. It's not like you're paying something less and then you have to like shell out money for your productions, because I have friends at other film schools that can make things very like unfair very quickly, where say your production can only afford to shell out so much, and then another production has decided they're going to shell out twice as much as you. That's already incredibly uneven, and then you can do much more with that. So I'm really happy that's not how we're structured, but there are no surprise costs. But that's also one of the reasons that upfront my school is expensive. So no, we don't have to pay for that. That's structured into the cost of our degree. Yeah, I've heard other people talking about when they have to like spend it feels much more like you're spending your own money to like make your production good, and that can be very stressful, because then you feel like, oh, maybe if you'd spent more it would have been better. We can't do that. We all get the same kit and the same amount of budget. There's nothing more we could have done. If it's bad, it's just bad. Okay, that is pretty much all of the questions. A lot of them were along the same lines. If you have any more pressing questions, feel free to leave them down there or even DM me. I am at sarcasticfish on. We love consistent queen, apart from my uploads recently have not been very consistent, but I'm blaming this model because this is a lot of work. I both love and hate you in equal measures. I will make sure that you get to see the set that I build, because I'm already really chuffed with it and I just want to make it the best thing that it can be. It's just a lot of work, and it's very draining when you're having very, very long ass meetings on Zoom calls and you're getting frustrated with each other because you don't have the simple ability to just clarify by pointing to a wall. I cannot overstate how if you could just point to a wall, how incredibly easy it would be. But that is what it is. We just gotta make do for now. Thank you very, very much for watching. Like, subscribe, and all the jazz, and I will see you guys very, very soon. Bye. Well, I say very soon. I have a lot on, so I'll see what I can do. Bye.